Welcome to the For Your Life podcast, where we explore practical ways to create a healthier, happier, and more intentional life. I'm Cherine, and I'm founder of For Your Life. We're a business with a mission to support you with some simple and sustainable tools to change your health, your habits, your mindset without overwhelming you. I'm all about progress over perfection. In this episode, I'm going to be diving into 4 of my all-time favorite books on habits and behavior change. Because let's be honest, who has time to read a book these days? So I've done the heavy lifting for you. And today what we'll be doing is looking at the 4 must-read books if you want to know how to change your life by changing your habits. The 4 books we'll be looking at is firstly The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, Atomic Habits by James Clear, Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, and Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg. I'll walk you through the key ideas from each book, why they mattered for your everyday life, and how you can start applying them immediately. Whether you're trying to improve your health, if you just want to sleep better, you want to improve your productivity, or just simply want to show up as the best version of yourself. And if you've ever wondered why habits are so hard to break and even harder to make them stick, and you finally want to make that change once and for all, this is the episode for you. So let's get started. The Power of Habit is a book written by Charles Duhigg. He is a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative journalist and a best-selling author. He currently writes for The New Yorker, and he's actually spent 11 years as a reporter and editor for The New York Times, where he was based in Iraq. And during that time, he was really fascinated in observing how the US military used behavioral science to prevent riots. And this sparked a decade-long exploration that culminated in his first book, which was called The Power of Habit: Why We Do What We Do in Life and in Business. It's been over 3 years on the bestseller list and has been translated into 40 languages. So this is the one you want to read. Firstly, what he talks about is this idea of a habit loop, and it really sets the scene for how to understand habits. Habits are all about a cue, a routine, and a reward. And if we want to change our habits, we really need to understand how this 3-part process works. He then goes on to deep dive into different types of habits, talking specifically about keystone habits and how they are really the place where you need to make a start, because by changing one thing, you can dramatically improve other areas of your life. And the example he gives is actually an organizational one, where the new CEO of a massive steel company in the US stepped up to the podium in front of all the shareholders and investors, and he said he was going to focus on one thing and one thing only in the business, and that was safety. And this was so surprising to everyone, but it really was a keystone habit, because by focusing on safety, everyone started to communicate better, people started to maintain their machinery better, workplaces were kept tidy, there was often less employee absenteeism, and at the end of the day, it dramatically improved the entire company's profitability by focusing on that one thing. And it really is a powerful example of how just being really clear in your intention, having that one habit and focusing singularly on that can have a ripple effect throughout your life. And we'll talk about keystone habits further down. Another great example of keystone habits is sleep. And it really is quite powerful when you look at all the benefits you get from sleep. So if you're wanting to change your life, pick a habit that's going to have the biggest impact on the whole of your life. And one example of that is sleep, and we'll talk about that later as well. The 4th point I'd just like to bring out from that book, which is pretty important, is the idea that craving drives habit formation. So the brain anticipates rewards, and this makes habits automatic, even after the initial motivation has faded. And the point that he makes here is that the anticipation of the reward is often greater than the reward itself. So bear that in mind next time you have a craving. The golden rule for changing habits is also something that he has identified and articulated very well in this book. And that is the idea that if you keep the reward but swap the cue or the routine, you can change the loop. You can get out of that hamster wheel of continually doing the same thing. Willpower is something that he does talk about, and although it is important, it is something that gets fatigued the more you try to rely on it. So he's saying use willpower initially, but eventually your habits are the things that are going to take you through the journey to lasting change. So willpower is important in the beginning, but the habits will create that lasting change. Number 7 key takeaway from here is the idea that habits persist without awareness. Researchers now believe that more than 50% of what we do on a daily basis is triggered by habits. So our habits are unconscious. The first part to changing habit is by bringing it to your level of awareness. So that is a really, really important thing to understand. Point number 8 is a little bit existentialistic in that we have to link our habits with our sense of identity. And although I don't want to go into alcoholism or alcohol addiction, but this is really the key to the success of AA, is that you become part of a community. There's a lot of faith-based work that happens, and when you hand yourself over to a higher power or you become part of a greater group, then it's not just you battling. You take on a new identity, and that is very, very powerful in shifting your mindset when you are trying to change a habit. So the belief becomes self-reinforcing, and you start to become that person that you want to be by shifting your identity. So once you adopt an identity or a belief, it shapes your next action, which then provides you with that belief in yourself and helps you to weather the storm when the going gets tough. So the final point to leave you with as we conclude our book review of The Power of Habit is that particularly if you're faced with a bad habit that you want to change, just bear in mind that bad habits are unfortunately always going to be there, but we can change the way that they operate. So they'll always be lurking in the background, but it doesn't mean you have to respond to them. And the idea that he gives is that by switching out the response to a cue, you can change a bad habit into a good habit. And the simple example is if you typically crave a piece of chocolate after your meal at night, substituting that with a piece of fruit, for example, you're still getting that same reward, but you are kickstarting a better cue, reward, response cycle that sets you up for better habits. If I can leave you with one key takeaway from this book, and I think the thing that is the most powerful here is this concept of a keystone habit. Many of us will have lots of things that we want to change. So where do we start? And instead of trying to change a whole lot of things, just change one thing. And earlier I gave the example of sleep. Another one is exercise, and another one is diet. The holy trilogy: diet, sleep, and exercise if you want to change your life, because these are keystone habits. These impact other areas of your life. I really hope you have enjoyed this very fast and summarized version of this amazing book by Charles Duhigg called The Power of Habit. It really is, I would recommend, the book to read if you really want to understand how habits work and how you can use them to change your life.